Hello, everyone. This is Professor Reena Randir. Today, we'll talk about the Columbian exchange and sustainability. The main learning objectives is for you to understand the main events of the Columbian exchange, including the exchange of plants, animals, microorganisms between the old world and the new world. You will understand how this exchange is a pivotal time in history. It changed the human diet, the agricultural practices, and it had adverse effects on the environment. So you'll study the positive and negative impacts of the Columbian exchange on the environment, and you'll recognize the need for responsible resource management and sustainable practices. We study the human evolution and out of Africa story a few lectures ago. And so humans started to colonize the New World meaning the Americas. So the bridge is called the Beringia Bridge. So the Beringia Bridge theory suggests that humans crossed a land bridge that connected Asia to North America during the last of the ice ages. And that is why we see fossil records that is like 12,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, and so forth. So the estimate is about 20 to 30 years ago is when humans, Homo sapiens, started to populate the Americas, North America and South America. And in history classes, you must have heard about and learned the rich, diverse American tribes, Native American tribes that populated USA, and like very ancient tribes like the Tainos, the Aztecs in Mexico, and Mayans, and the Inca civilization of Peru. So they are very rich, sophisticated cultures and civilizations that existed long ago. Until, of course, Christopher Columbus arrives. So Christopher Columbus leaves Europe, Spain, in search of a new trading route and also for exploration. And when he arrived at the Americas, he bought a lot of plants and animals, and there was a exchange that happened. So the Columbian exchange, after the landing of Christopher Columbus in 1492, refers to the exchange of plants, animals, and unfortunately some diseases also between the New World and the Old World. When you say New World, it's referring to the Americas, and the Old World is Europe, Asia, and Africa. This concept, this terminology was coined by Alfred Crosby in a book, and it became very popular history topic. This Columbian exchange, of course, is a pivotal event in world history because it marks the beginning of globalization and the interconnectedness of the world ecosystems because of this first brave journey of Christopher Columbus, when he discovered the New World. And here's a very comprehensive picture. So the pink arrow is all the crops and plants and animals and diseases that arrived to the New World. So we have apples, bananas, citrus, peaches, plums, pears, watermelons, and here's also a list of flowers, dandelions, and tulips, and staple crops like barley, cash crops like coffee, um, rice, and wheat. They were all brought from the old world to the new world. So Christopher Columbus brings it to America. And also these animals, cattle and pigs and horses, sheep. Unfortunately, some honeybees, which are very invasive, and they replaced our native species of bees. And he also brings a whole list of uh, that journey triggered, and all the other further um, settlements and sailors brought the plague, diphtheria, malaria, measles, yellow fever, smallpox to the New World. And from the New World, he takes home tobacco, rubber, and regular food like beans, corn, pecans, avocados, cassava, chili, guava, pineapple, squashes, sweet potato. Very important would be potatoes from the Incas in Peru, and also a whole range of flowers. So this exchange of biological material took place in droves, like a wave after the Christopher Columbus 1419 journey. Before then, people in Europe did not know potato or tomatoes or corn. Like if you go to Africa, so many of these crops are more easier to grow, and they yield a very big harvest. So you can only imagine, if the food supply is high and there is food security, the population of the colonizers will explode also. So before Christopher Columbus came, like Aztecs, I just want to give a few examples of a very successful, and the key word is, of course, sustainable agricultural practices that the Aztecs followed. Even now, you can see some records of and leftover uh, landmarks of their ancient agriculture. Chinampas refers to these anchored, floating, it's not floating, it's anchored uh, islands where they would, the island, it's floating because of reeds, and then they pack a lot of dirt, they fertilize it, and they grow like maize, beans, squash, chili, and peppers. So they did have very good agricultural practices. They were experts, and they understood the importance of crop rotations, the use of fertilizers. They knew how to irrigate their crops with aqueducts and canals, which you can still see now. And of course, the storage houses. So even though it was a dry climate, they were resilient to climate changes then. They paid attention to the growing diverse crops. And also, like here in New England, we hear the story of the three sisters. That is a planting technique where you would grow corn, and then the corn will be the support for the beans, and the beans will fix atmospheric nitrogen, enriching the soil. And squash is a very good ground cover, protecting soil erosion and giving a yield. You can also see it this way. We have carbohydrate, we have a protein source, and rich phytonutrients, almost like a balanced diet in just one planting technique. So this is attributed to Native Americans. They were also very well known for storing seeds, again, crop rotation, and taking care of the land when they grew crops. However, after the explosion of the crops, right, the exchange of crops, and we started growing new crops, the population of the colonists increased. And here you can see the exponential growth. like they'll call it the hockey stick growth of the human population. Because this exchange involved a lot of microbes that cause disease. So when the Europeans brought in diseases, we saw the list of diseases here: the plague, malaria, measles, smallpox, and typhus and yellow fever. The Europeans had immunity to it, but when they brought it here to these ancient civilizations, it kind of like wiped them out. And here's some like sad numbers: Indians, the population fell like 90%. Aztecs, 25 to 1 million, the Mayans. So that is why these ancient civilizations vanished from the Western Hemisphere. So as their populations dwindled, and here we want workers for the plantations, the sugarcane plantations, and you need strong workers. And that's when the most terrible, unthinkable slave trade started. So this is like a triangle route. It's called as the transatlantic slave trade. So the European ships will go to Africa and force people or trick them to come to America as slaves. So this was very prevalent uh, after in the 16th to 19th century. So the agricultural practices that were followed in these monoculture plantations, like cotton plantations, or you would have seen pictures of sugarcane plantations, they were not sustainable. This exchange of crops evolved, and it kind of changed the eating habits of people all over the world because of globalization of food. Our diet changed. Before Christopher Columbus, there was no tomatoes in Italy. So the pizza, as we know it, is because of this exchange. And potatoes arriving in Russia, or chilies in India. It completely revolutionized the way people eat. Because of this exchange, we have access to nutritious food, and and also easy to grow food. We have new sources of protein, like from the New World, turkey and llamas came, and cattle and pigs came to the Old World. And cash crops like coffee and tea and chocolate and sugar is everyday food for people all over the world. Some of the environmental impacts of Columbian exchange is tremendous. Of course, one is deforestation. So the colonizers were highly advanced. They had guns, they had axes and saws. So it was very easy for them to shave off the trees. Deforestation, just extensive deforestation that led to like terrible soil erosion. And all the agricultural practices that are used is not sustainable. The water is polluted by this random, husbandry, raising cattle and pigs. And also the mining industry has taken off. So apart from exchanging a lot of crops, they kind of loot the natural resources of the new world. They take back home gold and silver, and they need more slaves to work in these mines. And there's tremendous extension of species. And the crops they brought in has become an invasive species now, straggling the native crops. One good example is the European honeybee that displaced all the pollinators here. And also that triggered more, accelerated the climate change induced deterioration of the environment. So all the focus now is to how to grow our crops and sustain our livelihoods in a manner that doesn't tax the environment. So, in summary, the Columbian Exchange was a big event in history that changed the way we grow crops, the types of crops we grow, and the food that we eat. And we now have access to a wide range of foods. It brought a lot of economic benefits for both the worlds, but it also had significant bad environmental impacts, such as deforestation, soil erosion, water pollution, extinction of species, invasion of invasive species. These are all like very hard to control. So our next step is to promote sustainable development goals that will aim to protect the environment and provide a living for the people. We have to find ways to reduce green gas emissions. We have to protect biodiversity by promoting sustainable practices. And I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it was useful.